Thank you so much, everyone. You know, nearly 2 million American adults and young people are transgender, and we and our families have been under attack from the Trump administration from day one. But we have been working arm in arm with our colleagues here in the civil and human rights community to push back. When Secretary DeVos and Attorney General Sessions withdrew life-saving guidance last year that supported transgender students, it sent frightened shockwaves through families and emboldened bullies. You're going to hear, I think, a little more about that from my good friends Sarah and Nicola in a little bit. When President Trump said he'd ban transgender people from the military in any capacity, it not only threatened the service of thousands of capable troops, it sent a loud and clear message to transgender kids that they were less than because of who they are. But this effort by President Trump and Vice President Pence to stack the courts with biased judges may be just about the biggest threat we face among so many threats from this administration. As some of my colleagues have said, Betsy DeVos and Jeff Sessions will have a few years to serve and can do a lot of damage, and already are. President Trump and Mike Pence will serve for a few years, but if he has his way, Kyle Duncan and Thomas Farr will sit as federal judges for 20 or 30 or 40 years, putting their biased stamp on our courts, on our laws. In just about every major case over the dignity of LGBT Americans, and particularly young transgender people, as my colleague Sharon mentioned before, Kyle Duncan has been there, defending discrimination. When North Carolina passed their shameful law targeting trans people, the law that was so universally reviled it cost the state millions, it cost the governor his job, and it ultimately had to be changed, Kyle Duncan defended the people who wrote it. But it's not just about who his clients were. It's not even just that he again and again sought out the opportunities, the cases, and the clients where he could make the arguments and advance the positions that would be most harmful to LGBT Americans and our families. He hasn't just represented and defended those who discriminated against people like us. He has demeaned our families and our children. When defending HB2, for example, he sought out fringe so-called experts to describe being transgender as a delusion. A claim that is both deeply demeaning and at odds with the overwhelming consensus of the medical community. Trans people look to the courts for justice, just like anyone else. In civil rights cases like that one, and the case of Gavin Grimm in Virginia, yes. But also in every other kind of case that our courts handle, touching on every part of our lives. Someone who talks about nearly 2 million Americans that way is not someone we can expect to be a fair and unbiased judge, let alone a powerful appeals judge for a lifetime. Thomas Farr represents the same kind of bias and, frankly, meanness that is unacceptable in someone nominated for a lifetime judgeship. Farr's extreme anti-civil rights, anti-voting rights positions and actions can give no confidence that he would be a fair judge for anybody who is viewed as being different. People have asked me, what are we going to do about these nominees? Aren't they just going to get confirmed anyway? Not if we have anything to say about it, and we do. Because we have heard from so many trans people and allies and parents across the country, from Alaska to Maine, who understand what it means to see this kind of bias, this kind of meanness, this kind of demeaning rhetoric and actions coming from people who President Trump and Mike Pence want to sit on our courts for a lifetime. It is not acceptable, and we are saying no to our senators. And we are mobilizing folks across the country to pick up the phone, pick up the pen, and talk to their senators from coast to coast, from Alaska to Maine, to say that this is not okay. That our courts have to represent that principle that Congressman Kennedy talked about, equal justice under law. That is not so much to ask or expect from our courts or from the United States Senate, is it?
No!
And do we think these nominees stand for that?
No!
And are we going to accept it?
No!
So how do we want our senators to vote on these guys?
No!
That's right. That's right. So we're going to be there, arm in arm with everyone else here, until these two nominees are not nominees anymore. They are not federal judges, until we see that the people who are going to be sitting on our courts are people that we can have some basic level of trust, that they will respect, that they will reflect the words that are written in stone up there here in our Supreme Court. And we are not going to stop speaking out until that happens. Thank you.